here. We're talking about security and cybercrime. Specifically, what we're going to talk about, because obviously we don't have all day. We've got just about 40 minutes. So we're going to be talking about the Advantage Shield Assessment Plan. Jason, tell us a little bit about what the Advantage Shield Assessment Plan is.
Well, the Advantage Shield Assessment Plan is kind of more of a comprehensive overview of your IT, your companies, not just IT equipment, but everything about your company, assessment to planning and to defending against cybersecurity threats.
Now, this is a plan. This is a program that's available through Advantage Technology. We're going to be talking about what this involves, but this is actually just kind of to get the sales pitch in and out of the way here. You can talk to any of the account representatives. This is an hourly based system, so if you want to get the Advantage assessment plan, talk to the account representatives. We'll have an engineer come and take a look, evaluate the policies and everything that you have to give you an idea of what the cost would be to do a full plan with Advantage Technology. So what we're going to talk about here is what that plan entails. Once you hire Advantage Technology to develop that plan for you, what are you going to receive? What are we going to talk about? But before we get into that, I guess it's most important to talk about why should you even worry about security? And then that's the biggest thing. Everyone always talks about security. You hear it in the news, but why is it really a concern? And I've got 3 images I want to show you that I think will probably drive this home real quick. It's Target, Sony, and Ashley Madison. That's a story about 2 years old, a story about a year old, and a story that's a couple weeks old. The Target hack, for anyone that doesn't remember, Jason, could you give us an overview of what the Target hack was?
The Target hack actually originated from a third-party vendor that worked with Target. They actually used that vendor's credentials to get into the system, and because Target wasn't fully aware of what was going on in their network, it let the hackers play around in their system for over 2 weeks, setting up the credit card breach. And then another almost 2 weeks collecting the credit card data before it's fully discovered and disclosed.
But so Target wasn't at fault then, right?
Target was definitely at fault. They didn't have the proper policies and procedures in place to detect and prevent.
But if I've got a small business, let's say, so in this case it was literally a cleaning crew, right?
It was an HVAC company.
Okay, HVAC company, okay. So, but let's just say, for example, if I've got a small company, let's say I've got credit card information on clientele. If an HVAC company comes in, hacks into my system, or does something that enables somebody to hack into my system, then I'm not liable, am I?
You're still liable for the data that was lost. It's kind of like, the third-party vendor is responsible for the hack, and you can actually, they're responsible for part of it, but ultimately it's your responsibility to protect your data and your clients' and customers' data.
And I don't know about you guys, but even if somebody had a really good excuse for why my credit card data got stolen and is available on the internet, I still wouldn't shop at that place again.
It's definitely a big question, and that's something Target's been fighting for, is their reputation back.
There's been news, they've had news stories coming out in the Wall Street Journal regularly about how Target has suffered from that. And that's all because they didn't have adequate security measures. Is that right?
Yeah, they did not have the correct adequate security measures that were being monitored. They actually had a very sophisticated threat alert system, but no one was paying attention to it. So they had the data there, alerted them of the system, but nobody acted on it.
And we're going to get into this in just a minute, but that's actually this whole policies versus procedure things that we're going to get into that. But you can have a policy and it's in a nice 3-ring binder and it looks great and everything. If nobody follows it, it's not worth anything, and that's where the procedures come into play, right?
Yes.
So now let's switch gears because we're going to take a totally different, because Target's a great example of someone stealing consumer data via a third party. But what happened with Sony? That was a completely different situation, right?
The information about Sony and Ashley Madison are actually kind of limited because they kind of consider some of those slightly terrorist type attacks, because they seem to be infiltrated from outside the U.S. and they have done malicious damage to both companies. So Sony appears it came from a malware someone clicked on, let them get in the system. They did not have the proper security measures in place, and any of the information that they did see they didn't act on. So the hackers, presumably have been in the system or were in the system for months, and uploaded almost 100 terabytes of data.
Downloaded?
Well, they uploaded it to their servers,
to
their Dropbox, their drop points, wherever it is, and then, 100 terabytes of data is probably more than anybody in this room combined has on their systems. It's a lot of data.
And I saw a lot about the Sony. I guess the biggest thing that was in the news was the emails that were released. I mean, people lost their jobs over that, right?
The email is probably the most notable because it deals with celebrities. It's some pretty scandalous information came out on the emails.
So I guess even if you don't think even if you say, well, my email, I don't say anything bad in my email or anything like that. There's any number of ways that emails that you write can come to light and be used, kind of taken out of context and used in any number of ways, right? And on top of that, Sony also had a straight up financial damage too, because there were several of their movies that were actually leaked to the public.
There were 5 movies, 4 of them hadn't even been released yet. 5 of them were released. One of them they couldn't even profit on because that was the one about North Korea. So they completely lost all their profit, which could have been in hundreds of millions of dollars for one movie.
But just to be clear, that was a foreign attack. North Korea, China, nobody knows exactly.
Nobody knows exactly.
But nobody in this room has to worry about any kind of foreign agents, Russians or Chinese or anything like that, right?
Depends. They're not targeting you specifically, unless if you're, Bill Gates or something. They just do what they fish. They essentially throw a line out there in the form of an email or website, and if you bite, then they've got you. So they're not specifically targeting you, but the hackers are from everywhere.
And now that can be, I'm sure no one in this room opens email attachments they're not supposed to, but someone in the corner office or someone, down in the mailroom or whatever could easily open that and if you don't have security in place, can cause all the damage, right?
Yes, and it actually can be a legitimate link someone sends you, but because the website that they sent you to is infected, without the proper security measures, firewalls and antivirus, it can still potentially affect your machine.
And the Advantage Shield assessment plan addresses these type of issues.
It addresses the type of issues because a lot of people forget that IT isn't the security, it is part of the security. It is a resultant of your policies and procedures.
And stepping back for just a second, as far as third-party issues, the Advantage assessment would help mitigate those type of things as well, right?
The assessment part of the plan is meant to assess your cyber threat footprint, or the target that you have on you and your company. You got to figure out what you can be exposed to before you can even act on it. So the assessment part is meant to kind of dig underneath the mattress and see what you've got there, so you can at least apply the proper measures.
Okay, great. Now let's get into something scandalous, because I'm ready for some scandal. Let's talk about Ashley Madison. What happened there?
Ashley Madison, the hacks appears to be similar to Sony, except it was a fully directed, targeted attack to get into Ashley Madison's system.
And Ashley Madison, for anyone who doesn't know, Ashley Madison's actually a website that facilitates infidelity. Okay, so another way to kind of think of it, kind of generally, is they have very sensitive information.
Yep.
Nobody that's on Ashley Madison wants anybody to know that they're on Ashley Madison. And the same principles involved with Ashley Madison could easily apply to a doctor's office, a law office, or anyone who, if you store any kind of credit card information, you can think of all that stuff as the same type of sensitive data. Just because you're not, a seedy company like Ashley Madison doesn't mean that your data is less, important.
The data is just as important as protected identifiable information. PII is what everybody wants to protect. Ashley Madison, a little more sensitive because people are less likely to come out and file a lawsuit, or because they don't want people to know. But that data is actually been released on the internet now, and I read an article that Ashley Madison maybe have up to $1 billion in lawsuits against it now that all everyone's information is out.
Yeah, that's right, because when you look at Ashley Madison, one of the interesting things about it is they actually had this feature where you could scrub the system of all of your data. You pay an extra $50 or $60 or something like that. It's $19. You pay an extra fee, and they'll scrub your data. And what's happened with this hack is they've discovered they didn't follow through on any of that. So they would charge you the money, then they wouldn't scrub the data, so all the data is still out there. And now what that amounts to at the end of the day is Ashley Madison is liable. I mean, that is, they took money for a service they didn't perform. And all of that's been made public because of a security breach.
And it kind of brings to light that, you don't necessarily know what your data is being used for, or if what you're expected of your third party or who you're contracting with is actually doing what they say. So,
that's an important part of just day-to-day security.
Yes.
Is making sure you know who you're sending your data to and what they're doing with it. So let's move on then. So those are some examples to kind of give you an idea for anyone who said, I don't need to worry about security. What do I care about security? If somebody reads my emails, I don't care. Nobody, you hear about hacks all the time, big deal. I mean, hacks, even though you do hear about them all the time, they have real world. Now, the damages don't usually make it to the news, just the story makes it to the news. But, someone gets their identity stolen because your business or your office got hacked, they're not going to be very happy with it.